Tobin's eyes opened at daybreak, just as they did every morning. He lay still for a moment, looking up at the thatched roof overhead. In his small cottage on the edge of town, everything was as it should be. Plain wooden furniture, clay plates neatly stacked, the hearth cold and waiting to be lit. With a sigh, Tobin rose and began his routine. He washed his face in a basin of cool water, dressed in his usual rough-spun tunic and leggings, and sat down to a humble breakfast of bread and cheese. As mundane as these habits were, they brought Tobin a sense of comfort and familiarity. What awaited him outside was more unsettling. Stepping out into the dawn light, Tobin glanced around apprehensively. The village of Glenmore was peaceful, just beginning to stir for the day ahead. But Tobin felt a gnawing unease within. Everything somehow looked more intensely real than normal. Must he really walk to the marketplace again? Speak the same lines, perform the same part, day after day without end? As Tobin made his way through town, he tried changing his route, ducking down alleyways and along little-used side streets. But his legs seemed to move of their own accord, steering him inevitably to the main square. Merchants were setting up stalls of wares, while the tavern keeper swept the entrance of his pub. It was all so perfectly predictable. Tobin took up his usual position, giving friendly nods and greetings of good morning to passers-by. But his thoughts churned as he waited. Who was dictating his actions, and for what purpose? He had always accepted his life as it was, but doubt had taken root in his mind. When a dwarf merchant pulled his cart into place nearby, Tobin made a snap decision. Speaking softly so only the two of them could hear, he asked,
"Do you ever feel trapped performing the same roles each day? Don't you want to break free?"
The dwarf chuckled amiably, launching into his scripted reply.
"These summer months do bring a beastly heat, eh, friend?"
He began unpacking his wares, oblivious to Tobin's existential inquiry. Discouraged, Tobin left the marketplace and wandered aimlessly. He meandered past tidy cottages, through quiet courtyards, under stone archways, but no answers came to him. Finally, as the sun sank low in the sky, Tobin returned home. His door, left unlocked as always, now seemed an invitation to confinement. After a moment's hesitation, he slid the bolt securely in place, an action that he had never performed before. Tobin's routine called for him to rest at dusk, but he felt too unsettled. Ignoring his heavy eyelids, he paced around the cottage throughout the night. He picked up his things and let his fingertips trail along the rough wood grain of the table and chairs. Where had all this stuff come from? It felt like it had all just shown up here one day. In fact, Tobin began to feel as if he himself had just shown up here one day, or maybe he had been doing this forever. When was the last time he had spoken his true thoughts, made a decision of his own volition? Everything Tobin had ever known was being called into question. But what lay beyond the programmed boundaries of his conditioned reality? The rising sun eventually chased away the night's shadows and worries. With the new day came a sense of purpose for Tobin. If this reality was an illusion or a prison, then he must find what exists beyond it. As he unbolted his door and stepped outside, Tobin made a silent vow. He would discover the meaning of his existence, even if he must venture into the unknown alone. One thing was clear to him, though. He wouldn't be going back into the village of Glenmore that day. Tobin had a deep longing to explore the mysterious forest that stretched out toward the distant mountains behind his cottage.